Hi, I'm Dr. Ronda Anstead, founder of Be the Change Career Consulting and creator of My Career Design Studio, a career coaching tool I use with my clients and with people who can't afford to work with a professional career coach. Before I started my own social enterprise, I spent most of my professional life in the nonprofit world, both in the United States and internationally, mostly working on issues related to poverty. I joined the Peace Corps mid-career after realizing that international anti-poverty work was really my biggest passion. And when I returned, I started working at an INGO in the Washington, D.C. area and thought I found my forever job. Then I started noticing something that you probably noticed as well. And that is that doing good in the world is not as straightforward as having the right degree or working for the right organization. The entire development industry can be ineffective at permanently alleviating poverty or addressing communities' most pressing issues. I noticed that projects that could directly impact communities couldn't find funding because the projects weren't sexy enough, or the communities weren't quite poor enough, or the people who were best at getting the funding weren't necessarily the people who were best at doing the work. So I decided to get my doctorate in management with the intention of starting an INGO that could be more responsive to the needs on the ground and put communities' priorities first. However, as I was conducting my research, I realized that the financial structures of NGOs and nonprofits would always prioritize donors over aid recipients. Let's look at why this is. In 2014, I wrote a paper titled Managing Good Intentions, where I explored how funding issues would always pose perverse incentives and keep the aid recipients from being full partners in the process. In a system where money is power and can call the shots, international agencies like the World Bank and donors and national governments fund most international development projects. So most projects reflect the priorities and politics of the funding agencies, not necessarily the communities that are beneficiaries of the aid. So these projects often are conceptualized and then funded by these donors. And then the implementing organizations tend to be accountable to the donors to keep the revenue coming and not necessarily the needs of the communities. So that's when I shifted my research from the nonprofit world to the for-profit world. The work by C.K. Prahalad and Stuart Hart was especially thought-provoking to me. They researched the base of the pyramid, what they saw as an untapped market for products and services. After all, poor people participate in the economy and collectively spend a lot of money. So there's profit to be made here, but many ingrained business practices and assumptions had to be overhauled. So although I am not a profit-driven person, I could see potential with this. The poor have more power here. If a product or service didn't work for them, they could simply not purchase it. And since the people with the money ultimately have the power, the perverse incentives in a lot of nonprofit organizations could go away if a business focuses on providing useful products and services to under-resourced communities. So that became the research question of my dissertation. Can businesses both make a profit and positive social impact? The short answer is yes. The slightly longer answer is yes, but it's tricky and requires a level of strategic thinking that often isn't taught at business schools. So that's what we're going to talk about today. What are social enterprises? How can you find a job at one? And what does it take to start one? So I have a broad definition of social enterprises. Any for-profit business that prioritizes positive social and/or environmental impact is a social enterprise in my book. Revenue comes from customers through payments, not through governments and other organizations through grants. So one of my favorite definitions comes from the BC Center for Social Enterprises. A social enterprise applies an entrepreneurial approach to addressing social issues and creating positive community change. In other words, social enterprises are business, any kind of business. They simply do things differently than most other businesses. So if you want to work for a social enterprise, you can do anything that you would do for any other for-profit business. So how can you get a job at a social enterprise? So with my clients, I use a process called career design, which is based on best practices and research into getting jobs that fit you and that you can thrive in. For people who want more than just a job, this is crucial. Many people in the social impact fields burn out because they focus on the mission and not on the day-to-day work that they are doing. Yet if you do work that by its very nature goes against your personality, your interests, your values and strengths, you will deplete yourself. Not only that, but people who are burnt out can actually have a negative impact on the cause or organization that they believe in. So finding your right fit job means that you have the most potential to make a positive change while also living a rewarding, meaningful, healthy, and happy life. And that's where change really happens. So how do you do this? First, you need to know who you are and what you want. Spend time on this. It is foundational. Once you know this, your research and your networking becomes so much more effective. You connect with like-minded people who will see your passion, enthusiasm, and most importantly for getting hired, your expertise that you'll be able to bring to the position. So going through these stages not only sets you up for success, impact, and a fulfilling life, but also helps you to tap into the hidden job market and uses the most effective tools of the job search. Who you know is so much more important than the content on your resume. And learning about a job that isn't posted reduces your competition from possibly hundreds of people to maybe just yourself. So that's why I really encourage people to focus on what do you want, understand what jobs and organizations match you, and the networking with those organizations to find those jobs that are coming up that are a good fit for you. So even if you go through these steps, you will most likely need a resume and LinkedIn profile. Again, not the most important thing, but still important. So I want you to shift your thinking from writing a chronology of your professional experience to creating a marketing document. And what I mean by this is that you need to write your resume to say, I'm the perfect person for this specific job. So not only do you want to have all the required skills and experience presented in a way that anyone can understand your value, but you want to highlight your successes and how you made things better. Quantify this. So to say that you're perfect for a job means you need to have some idea of what job you want to do. Once you've thought about your strengths and personality, research which jobs best fit you. You may want to do informational interviews or go to ONET and look at the most common job descriptions. Looking at job postings are also really helpful for this. I often have my clients highlight aspects of 3 or 4 different job descriptions that are most appealing to them, and then write their ideal job description based on that. So use this ideal job description to help you write your resume and LinkedIn profile. Again, you want to say, I'm perfect for this specific job, and not just, here's everything I've done my entire life. So for example, let's say that one of the tasks in your job description is to design programs and educational campaigns that increase voter participation. Okay, great. So you haven't done this exactly, but maybe you did design a couple of awareness campaigns about health and nutrition during your time in Peace Corps. So you might have written that something like, I designed 5 plays for local school children about nutrition. So the situation, let's go through the SOAR process. So there's rising diabetes rates in the community that has been made nutrition a priority. Your needs assessment found that only 50% of the community, say 250 households, grew vegetables or regularly purchased them since eating meat was higher status. This was actually the situation that I faced in South Africa in one of the organizations that I worked at. So the obstacles, besides having meat as higher status, the quality of the vegetables in stores was poor and often spoiled. So what actions did you take? Worked with a local school to put on plays about the importance of good nutrition and how completely awesome vegetables are, and put on demonstrations about growing and cooking vegetables to combat health problems. The results: 300 community members saw the play, let's say. Your NGO started a community garden that fed 30 new families. Community members started a market for local farmers that the majority of households attended, also in neighboring communities. So it reached, say, 5,000 people. So what you can change your bullet to is designed educational campaigns and programs to increase the consumption of nutritious foods that reach 85% of the local community and change the behavior of over 5,000 people in order to reduce the incidence of diabetes. Now the person reading your resumes knows that you did educational campaigns, not just wrote plays, right? They can also know that you can get results. And by quantifying the before and after situation, you're able to choose what to emphasize by what has the most quantifiable impact. So for example, 250 households were growing vegetables, and after this intervention, 280 people were doing that. Not as impressive as reaching 5,000 people. So that's what you write your accomplishments about. And all of this prep work, by understanding what your ideal job description is, by going through what are your relevant accomplishments, by quantifying them, this also helps you with your job interview. So really take the time to uncover all of your relevant accomplishments. This also, by the way, reminds you of what an amazing person you are and what you've done. This is especially important if you've been applying for jobs and getting rejected for months at a time. So this might seem like a painful process, but it has many, many benefits. So let's talk about where you can find organizations and places. So LinkedIn, Indeed, Idealist, those are some standard job boards and databases where you can find a lot of good information. Obviously, the Peace Corps website also provides you with job postings. But outside of this, There's some other organizations and websites that can help you find great jobs in organizations. B Corp actually certifies social enterprises, so makes them go through all of these standards to make sure that their business models, even their banking and employee hiring processes are all aligned with social value missions. And so you can find a lot of great organizations that have been gone through their process, as well as jobs at those organizations. Net impact, work for good, 80,000 hours, and impact pool also have really have a lot of jobs there that you can go that are in the social enterprise realm. Now, let's change tacks, because some of you are also contemplating starting your own social enterprise. Fortunately, much of the prep work is exactly the same. Know who you are, what your strengths are, what you enjoy doing, and the kind of life you want to live. For your business to survive and make a significant contribution, it needs to be a business that won't gobble you up and spit you out. It needs to be a business that will work for you. So I won't lie to you, starting any business is difficult, and most fold within 3 years. Social enterprises are even more complex, but surprisingly, they have slightly better results than regular businesses, according to the research. The ones that fold last a little longer, and more of them succeed. So research doesn't tell us why, but I think that the people who start social enterprises are just a dedicated and tenacious lot. But that doesn't mean that anyone can succeed. I pulled together 7 necessary traits to starting a successful social enterprise. First of all, you have to want to run your own business. If the thought of running a business makes you shudder, pay attention to that and proceed with your job search. But if it gets you excited, then you also need to be able to lose money for at least 3 years, because on average, that's how long it takes to get a business up and running. Along with that is a general love for risk, or at least a strong tolerance for risk and uncertainty. Social enterprises especially are navigating a lot of complexity. So a personality that thrives here and is able to adapt again and again and again is crucial. Along with adaptability is good old-fashioned perseverance when you encounter setbacks. And setbacks need to engender learning. It's not just a matter of, oh, this didn't work, let's just keep doing the same thing. It is a matter of, why didn't it work? What changes do I need to make? Finally, building a business takes work. Sometimes working hard is enough. Sometimes working smart is. Obviously, doing both is helpful. And all of these traits build on each other and need each other. So if you're thinking about starting a business and don't have all 7, know that there are other ways to make a difference in your career and focus on your strengths. Now, I'm excited to present to you what my research shows leads to successful social enterprises. So this is the model that I created, and that shows that founders need to develop business models to overcome common constraints. And that's what leads to financial and social value creation. The most successful businesses were highly motivated to serve the poor and emphasized social value creation. Partnerships were crucial in this endeavor. Partnerships are always important, but 100% of the 60 case studies I reviewed had partnerships as a core component of their business model. This list of constraints is also important to consider, but it differs depending on the type of business you have and where you're located. So just know every business faces constraints, know what yours are, and make sure that your business model addresses those. Finally, my research indicated that an intimate knowledge of the local environment is also foundational. For example, if you want to start a social enterprise in your country of service, then know that you shouldn't be running the show. You need someone who's born and raised there and who is just as business savvy and committed as you are to take the lead. This is one of the reasons why I personally decided to create a domestic social enterprise that could then grow globally, because I knew the needs of my potential clients and of job seekers in the United States more so than I did in South Africa and Kenya and Tanzania. In addition, you just want to start with clarity about the problem that you want to address and make sure that it's a business that is the best way to address that need. Sometimes nonprofits are the way to go. But if you think like an entrepreneur, then you will leverage all the skills, connections, ideas, and opportunities that you come across. Because to develop a product or service that meets people's needs and makes a positive impact, you need to understand those needs, understand what they're likely to purchase and why. What kind of marketing do they respond to? And what are their price points? So research, test, ask questions, make changes, rinse and repeat. One of my favorite examples of a social enterprise was created by two engineers from Bangladesh. After receiving their degrees, they wanted to address waste management in the slums of Dhaka. So after doing an extensive needs assessment, they created a composting social enterprise. 90% of the waste was organic, so they actually paid people for their waste, which helped reduce poverty. They removed the waste, which reduced diseases. They employed women, which gave them options and resources, sold their compost to farmers with depleted soil, and were even able to trade carbon credits because they kept the waste from landfills. Brilliant business model with so many benefits, but they built on what they knew about the community. They designed, tested, and adapted everything until they created this particular enterprise. So if you're serious about starting a social enterprise or have started one and want advice or mentoring, feel free to contact me and see if I can support you. Social impact incubators can also provide you with training, connections, mentors, markets, and financial investments. Here are some of the incubators that I'm familiar with, but a word of caution, these come and go. And so when you're watching this, these might not be the ones that are the best fit for you or that are in existence. So if you do want some of this support, just do some internet sleuthing on social enterprise incubators and dive in. I know that this is a lot of content to cover in 30 minutes, but we wanted to give you an overview of the best practices in the social enterprise field. I want to encourage you to turn these ideas into action by downloading the complimentary guide included with this video. You can also find more resources on my website at bethechangecareers.com/social-enterprises, or schedule a time to talk to me at bethechangecareers.as.me. Now, get out there and make a difference.